Hello, and welcome to a special episode of the Coach House Books podcast. Something really significant happened this year. Coach House Books turned 60. To celebrate that achievement, we threw ourselves an anniversary party at the Lula Lounge in downtown Toronto and collected 6 writers, all of whom had some kind of significant connection to the press, and all of whom came from 6 decades of publishing, to talk about what Coach House has meant to them. In this episode, you will be hearing from Michael Ndache, Sarah Shear, Andre Alexis, Sina Kiras, Sean McAuliffe, and Susan Hallbrook. But first, to kick things off, we'll be hearing from 2 of the most important voices at Coach House, editorial director Alana Wilcox and owner and founder Stan Bevington.
Hello, everyone. I know some of you are still waiting for drinks. Stay in line, get your drinks. You can do that while I'm talking. Everyone here okay? Great. Hello, I'm Alana Wilcox. I'm the editorial director of Coach House Books, and thank you. It's so nice to see so many of you here. Thank you so much for celebrating with us. 60 feels like an accomplishment. And for everyone who's here, we have a very special gift. On your way out, we have a special Coach House Anniversary red notebook. You can put your thoughts and feelings in it. And it's at the table over there. And please grab one, just one, on your way out. I just want to say that I've been working at Coach House for 25 years. And it's I started when I was 2, so. And it's been a remarkable gift to get to make books for a living. In that time, everything about the publishing industry has changed. How we work has entirely changed. But what has never changed is the strength of the community around Coach House, and here you are. And the chaotic, but brilliantly generative energy of that building and the people in it. You'll hear a lot about the past 60 years tonight, but I want you to know that that energy still fuels everything we do. There's a lot less hashish involved, but the spirit of 1965 lives on. Of course, we'd have nothing to edit, print, and promote without the authors. The best part of my job is getting to work with our authors, who constantly surprise me with their imaginations, the genius ways they make sentences. Can everyone here who's a Coach House author please raise your hands? And can everyone who has ever worked at Coach House raise your hand? What makes this whole thing work is all of you. Special thanks to the current staff of the printing company, Josh, Tony, John, Rick, and the current staff of the publishing company, Crystal, Sasha, Yanni, Olivia, Phil, and Kate. And especially to James, who organized this shindig. You guys will all put your hands up. Some of them over there. Every one of you who has put your hand up knows that what keeps Coach House going, what keeps our beautiful books rolling off the press, is the hard work and dedication of a man who doesn't like being on stage and whose work goes mostly unacknowledged. But without him, honestly, the whole place would fall apart. Every one of those books on the table has passed through his hands and his incredible talent at keeping it all organized. John, can you raise your hand? Stand up. John to Jesus, everyone. And at the heart of it all is Stan Bevington. At 22, he bought a printing press, and from that first press emerged 60 years of fine literature and exquisite printing. More than that, Coach House has been a hub for writing and the visual arts, and even an incubator for countless innovations in software and technology, printing technology. All of this has emerged from Stan's singular and expansive vision, his ability to draw in brilliant people, and his boundless curiosity and inventiveness. It's hard to imagine Toronto without Coach House. It's hard to imagine Canadian literature without Coach House. and Stan is at the heart of it all. So here to say a few words to you is Stan Bevington.
Thanks, Alana, and thanks for preparing a brief speech. In 1965, I dropped out of architecture school at U of T. The Canadian government was trying out designs for a Canadian flag, and I silkscreen printed what I thought was a good one. With the money from selling flags, $1 a piece, I bought the first printing press, a chunk of iron that Dennis Reed and I picked up from an old printer who was printing comic books. I typeset by hand, letter by letter, in Gutenberg fashion, Man in a Window. In 1967, we published Baseball, a first book of poetry by George Bowring, in the shape of a pennant. Journeying and the Returns, a box of poetry by B.P. Nichol, as well as Dainty Monsters, the first book of poetry by Michael Ondaatje. We kept making books, always choosing the strange and adventurous over the traditional and expected. Poetry, photography, visual arts, even a blotter paper. It had a lot of little frogs on it. We chose projects that emphasized their materiality and had fun making them. Writers and authors were always involved in the production of their books, doing handwork. Over the years, many people worked in both the printing company and the publishing company. Sarah Sheard, Clifford James, Janet Amos, Doris Cowan, David Young, Frank Davey, Victor Coleman, Tony Klinesk, Rick Simon, and many more. Their energy and imagination have fueled us for 60 years. And of course, writers and artists, BP, Michael, Robert Bones, Roy Kiyuka, David McFadden, Nicole Broussard, Matt Cohen, the list of hundreds of names long. It's an honor to bring them into the world. And it's fun having been a farm team. For the past 43 years, John DeJesus has been helping the presses. Would have been impossible without his dedication. And thanks to all of you for reading and come here. Later, I'll publish the blue pages, but not tonight. Thank you.
Our next speaker published his first book of poetry at Coach House in, I think, 1966. He's gone on to publish a few more books, picked up a few prizes along the way. Please come to the stage, Michael Ondaatje.
Every word of this is true. I was a student at U of T and was writing poetry and got a call from a place called Coach House Press who asked if I had perhaps a book of poetry they could publish. They had a year earlier published their first book, Wayne Clifford's Man in a Window. That was 1962. The press had been set up by a printer named Stan Bevington with his friend, the critic, Dennis Reed, as a merging of visual and writing. It still exists that way. And they would soon be publishing writers like Joe Rosenblatt and B.P. Nichol, and later writers from the West Coast like Daphne Marlott, George Bowring, Rocky Yuka, Sharon Thiessen, and many young poets from all across the country. I remember the very first book launch I ever went to, something very exciting for me. I was in Kingston and I got on a train to come to Toronto, and by then I was starving. The book was The LSD Leacock by Joe Rosenblatt, and the food was a selection of insects in chocolate, all planned by Rosenblatt. But the verve and the writing of this new press was a great education for all of us. We were witnessing the craft of how a book could be designed and made more interesting, and it influenced the work of everyone in that group in a new way. I know it influenced me and what it allowed me to do in the future. Later, when Anansi wanted to publish the collected works of Billy the Kid, I asked if they could allow Coach House to design it. And while Dennis Lee from Anansi was its editor, the book came out via Coach House. The first page had a poem called I Send You a Picture of Billy, and above it there was a photo of him. But BP Nickel was strolling by, looked at it quickly, and just said, keep the lines, dump the photograph. Let the reader imagine him. And I took his advice. We were young, and so we would be educated by this small press and their designers and artists like Rick Simon, John DeJesus, who is still at Coach House, and others there like Nelson Adams, Glenn Galuska, Diane Martin, Clifford James, Sarah Sheard. Many of them worked at Coach House for years. It was a huge influence on the writers there. It was the best gift we had been given as young writers at the beginning of a career. There were artists like David Bolduc, always at Coach House. Coach House had somehow earned some money printing menus for local restaurants. Unknown to those places, the Coach House printed menus had tiny, barely readable lines that said, printed in Canada by mindless acid freaks. Well, it is now 2025, with Coach House 60 years older this year. Still, the press still has its ears to the ground. Lana Wilcox, its great editor, has edited remarkable books like Sleeping Car Porter by Suzanne Meyer, or The Wondrous 15 Dogs, and other books by Andrew Alexis. And just this year, there is a book, I think, remarkable, and that just came out in this country, Maggie Helwig's Encampment. And Coach House still continues as this remarkable independent press with those like John DeJesus and Alana Wilcox who still carry on. Last night, I got a message from Dennis Lee, who could not be here, and said to thank Stan and Coach House for remaking Canadian literature in a different way. Thanks, Stan. Coach House changed my life.
Sarah Sheard, whose name you've already heard a couple of times, worked at Coach House, sometimes as publicist, sometimes as editor, from 1978 to 1993. She's also the author of the acclaimed novel Almost Japanese. Sarah knows Coach House from the inside out, or I should say from the outside in, as she ended up working outdoors at first. Please pick up her chapbook before you leave. It's a fabulous piece of writing. Sarah.
Okay, thank you, Alana. Thank you, all the current team of Coach Housers. We're the old team of Coach House, but we're still good, and we're still here. And it's a joy to see so many people here who are celebrating the thing that we have loved forever. So people say, well, what was it like to work at Coach House? So some of those little anecdotes I put into this little memoir that you'll get on the way out. But I just wanted to say that I hope that you guys have had a chance to be in a place where you, for a time in your lives, where you share assumptions and dreams and insider jokes and references and sadnesses and sexual stuff and things that you carry with you for the rest of your life. And I didn't know it at the time, but it was that shaping period of time, and certainly in my life, those years of being at Coach House that I've carried with me forever and will take with me to the grave. It's like maybe we all went to the same summer camp or something, or lived on the same street for a period of time. But it's very precious to me. And I still have dreams about the Coach House. And I've talked to Paul Collins, another alumnus. And we've joked about the fact that we have periodic dreams where we're back at Coach House. And, you know, I was there in my 20s. I'm now in my 70s. So time has elapsed, and yet I still dream about the Coach House. And obviously, it's a dream that's very much alive. So dream on. Thank you very much. And thank you to Stan, who made this dream possible.
Andre Alexis is one of a handful of authors to have been published in 2 different iterations of Coach House. His first book, Despair and Other Stories of Ottawa, was published by Coach House in 1994. And then from the years between 2014 and 2021, we published his Quincunx. Next up, Andre.
Thank you. I think of myself as being the second or third generation of Coach House writers, and I want to stress how beloved the first generation is because we don't often get a chance to talk about them. I remember reading an article by David McFadden about Christopher Dewdney and Robert Phones, and I went out and I bought a Paleozoology of London, Ontario, which completely fried me. The other book, around the same time, this is the books in the 70s, was M. Vaughan James's The Cage, which as a high school student, I had no idea what to make of. The thing about these books for me is that, especially in Dewdney's book, and he's probably partly responsible for me as a writer, there is the concentration on London, Ontario, but it's a London that is part of an incredible universe. The other book that had this huge influence on me, and in the similar way, is the long poem anthology that Michael edited, which showed me Roy Kuka's work, work that just meant something to me in both situating me in Canada, but suggesting the vastness that we are part of, and that you were allowed to take things from all of those places. And so, in a sense, the work that I'm doing is directly related to the sense of generosity and openness that we were allowed to access. There hasn't been another press that had that influence on me, and it continues to kind of influence how I think about things. I was part of, with Christian Book, our launch was Cordelia Strube, Christian, and me, and we're part of the Margaret McClintock era of Coach House, which is when the Coach House became the press and the books. And I actually think of myself as being part of that, but also a child of the previous generation. I still think of myself as that child, and I'm desperately grateful for all of you guys in the first generation for what you have meant to me and for my work. Thank you, and thank you, Stan.
We first got to work with Sina Karas in 2006 on Lemon Hound, and we've had the great pleasure of working on several projects together since then, including My Ariel and Rooms. And they were one of the co-editors of Avant Desire, a Nicole Broussard reader, which I think is one of the most important books we've ever published. Next up, Sina.
Hi, it's a pleasure to be here tonight. I'm going to take you way back to 1970s, northern British Columbia, resource town, lumberjacks, construction workers, and high school. I wandered into the library one day, and there on the shelf was a new magazine completely devoted to poetry. I couldn't believe my eyes. I opened it up. There were poems. There was a picture. In my mind, it's a picture of the Coach House in Toronto. And this crazy poet named B.P. Nichol, who lodged himself in my mind and stayed there like a little wedge that opened up a space between seeing and perceiving, and between the accepted and the possible. A decade later, when I was in college on Vancouver Island. My poetry professor there affirmed and expanded this little wedge theory, sharing his knowledge of nickel and his collection of poetry books with me, many of which were published by Coach House. They were beautiful, exquisite books. They were all lovingly printed and playfully crafted on beautiful paper. A few years later, I took a class with Daphne Marlatt at UBC, and she introduced me to the live wires of Gail Scott's sentences and the intellectual and sensual work of Nicole Broussard and the exquisite hum of No Language is Neutral by Dion Brand. These were very different books from the first wave of publications. And they made it possible for me to bring my body to writing. But they were also, I think, representative of Coach House and Coach House's love and respect for the sentence and the press's total commitment to the book as a tangible, materially grounded space of potential. I think of Coach House as a place where writing is expansive, visual, conceptual, ecstatic, playful, and lyrical. A space that honors the sentence as a work of art, as a sculpture, as a thing to play with. And being invited into that space was life-altering. And so too, the physical space that is Coach House, which is a kind of Studio Ghibli-esque stable that seems to float in the alley and in my imagination. And it's a monument to the making of literature, the material, messy, pulsing hive of people and machines dedicating to making these singular, beautiful books. It's also a space of resilience. And the values of Coach House are as real and important as the books themselves. The way that the press, with Alana at the helm, has navigated the turbulence of these past decades is extremely important. The Coach House has evolved and yet remains firmly rooted in itself and its experimental, innovative, playful, provocative work. It's maintained a cutting-edge publication profile while embracing difficult work, not only aesthetically difficult, but intellectually challenging and emotionally challenging work, and refreshingly independent-minded work. Coach House remains an ongoing source of inspiration to me and my students, and a much-needed intellectual and physical haven. It's a magical little wedge and a portal to all kinds of new possibilities. Thank you so much, Stan, Coach House, Alana.
Since 2005, we've been committed to publishing books about our city, and central to that project is the work of Sean McAuliffe. We reissued Stroll, his book about walking in Toronto, last year, and it's a joy to see people perambulating around town with it. Sean McAuliffe. Sean?
There he is, strolling.
There you go.
This is very nice, and I thought, predictably, everyone was going to be saying nice things about Coach House. So I thought someone should, for editorial balance, talk about the trouble with Coach House. Because writing books is about being, fiercely addicted to truth and confronting, things. So we should talk about Coach House. And one of the surprises about Coach House is that they're unexpectedly nice. You expect when you're in publishing, when you're getting into books, everyone wants to do it, you're going to be fighting for scraps. There's hardly any grants, there's no money around. All that's true, but they're actually nice about it. When you're really, really late with your manuscript and the launch date is there and they have to ship the things, they're kind of, I guess, okay, or at least They present, I'm sorry if there's any future authors here, they're probably not okay with it, but they're very nice about it at the time, and they're very humane about it, and sometimes, as they say, the book arrives at the launch and the print is still wet. And even John and the crew in the printing area seem very nice about it. And so it's not like what I expected it to be. I was looking forward to sort of like an Anna Wintour world. And Alana's and Crystal are both like the best dressed women in Toronto, but they're not Anna Wintour kind of thing. So that is a bit of a trouble if you're expecting that kind of thing. They also don't leave you alone. They're always kind of hounding you. In kind of other kind of bigger publishing houses, you do your book, it goes out, and then they forget about you. They leave you alone. You can just go do things like get a job or something. Coach House will, years later, if there's an event for your book, say, oh, we can help you, with this event, or we can keep selling your book, and that sort of thing. They're always kind of there. And if you're not, ready for that, it's kind of a problem. Also, the idea of the term coach house, it's not a metaphor, it's a coach house. So I don't know if you've ever been there, but it smells like annex horse poop, because that's what it was built for, annex people and their horses, and now it's like Porsche annex people. But it doesn't have any granite countertops, there's barely an air conditioner, there's barely a bathroom. So if you're expecting like glamping maybe, but glamour, it's not there. So there's a lot of disappointment with publishing with Coach House, which is different than how I kind of came to it. Because I recall in 2005, we had our little upstart spacing magazine at Word on the Street, Queen's Park. And someone said, oh, there's Coach House, kind of a few booths away. And there's Alana Wilcox. Go say hi to her because she's, the person that does it. And I couldn't go say hi to her because she was too cool. And she wasn't too cool. I mean, she's too cool. But, that's how I felt. Like, Coach House had such an aura about it and such a history that I couldn't go say hi. However, that year, Coach House published the first in their Utopia series. And that's the last thing I wanted to talk about, a bit of the nonfiction about that Coach House has published. They do great things, of course, in fiction and poetry. But they've kind of examined the city that they live in a way that a lot of publishers don't. And it started in 2005 with the first book in the Utopia series, Towards a New Toronto, and that continued with a few other Utopia books. And then there kind of an evolution to these anthologies where dozens and now probably hundreds of different contributors have added their voices to the Toronto canon. And that's a big deal, I think. A lot of voices that that maybe wouldn't be able to publish their own book or have a chance anywhere else in a magazine or whatever, have found their way into books like Queer Toronto, Any Other Way, The Ward, the recent Messy City that came out last week, Indigenous Toronto. And a lot of these books, I teach at University of Toronto, I teach the city, I teach civics, and I use Coach House books, excerpts from them, those chapters by some of those contributors as a way to for my students to learn about Toronto in a way that if it wasn't for Coach House, they wouldn't be able to get that view of the city. I also bring my students to the Coach House, and sometimes they've actually kind of got the book and been able to see the printing press, which is old. I'm sorry, it's like no ground account, like the thing is old. But they're also very impressed by it. It's very steampunk, and they can smell the ink, and they can see the thing whirl. And in my mind, the students will read the chapters I give them more when they see the printing press that it's on. That may be wishful thinking. But there's that connection between place and the intellectual connection with the place, but also the physical connection with it. We actually Coach House still makes things, physical things and intellectual things in downtown Toronto. And I think that's a big deal, 60 years later. So thank you, Coach House.
For any authors in the room that have a current deadline with Coach House, we are not nice. I've had the absolute joy of working with Susan Holbrook on our poetry board since 2012. Her editorial chops are surpassed only by her own writing talent. Throaty Wipes and Ink Earl are masterclasses in funny, innovative writing. And her new book, Steamy, a hot take on menopause, is trailblazing and, well, blazingly hot. Susan Holbrook.
I was born in 1967, so Coach House has always been that slightly older, infinitely cooler sibling that I just want to hang out with. I first encountered Coach House book with B.P. Nichols' Martyrology, and after that I realized every favorite book of mine turned out to be a Coach House book. I really loved especially the corduroy paper, that toothsome paper. And so I was very excited when my own work appeared on corduroy, and then when I joined that poetry board in 2011. I live in Leamington, so I'm way down there. Oh, there's a woo for Leamington. Always at risk of being flicked off the tip of Point Pelee. So to be part of this poetry board where we see, manuscripts nationally, internationally, it makes me feel connected to the currents. Working on that board is part agonizing and part wonderful. So it's agonizing because we do only publish a few of the fabulous manuscripts that we read. Wonderful because we get to edit some, and also because in the conversations with the other members of the editorial board, I learn new ways to talk about poetry. So you'll hear things like, this couplet is yeasty. This poem feels like fire ants in my ears in a good way. This line deflates like a leaky balloon. Sometimes you hear that poetry is too poetic. But the thing that you often hear, so in every meeting I think, the question comes up, is this a Coach House book? And it usually comes out something like, I really like this book, I want to buy it and I want to read it, but is it a Coach House book? And we never define what that is, but we know what we mean. So what do we mean? And I think since 1965, it's been about form and language that live. So Coach House books embrace innovative form that change your relationship to the page and to the world outside of it, off it. And the language surprises you. It's always surprising you, and then you realize it's what you've been waiting for at the same time. It doesn't deflate, it pops, or it loops around, wheezing out a wild alphabet of the possible. And the person who's herding all of us on the editorial board, there are 6 of us, is Alana Wilcox. And so I want to send a huge heartfelt thank you to Alana Wilcox with my speech here. She's the one who prompts. She's the one who prompts that question, what is a Coach House book? And also prompts us to ask, whose voices are we leaving out? How can we shape our list? She steers the entire press, so it's not just the poetry corner that I'm talking about. She has intrepid vision, so much care, so much generosity, and so many hours of her life. So if B.P. Nichol is the patron saint of Coach House, I would say that Alana Wilcox is its hero. That's it. Thank you. Happy anniversary.
Can I have another round of applause for all of our speakers? And another one for all of our staff and authors. And another one for John DeJesus. And one last one for Stan Bevington. So that's all for the formal part of our evening. Please stay, hang out with us for a bit, chat with all the Coach House people. The bar is open, the book table is there for browsing. And I guarantee you will find someone interesting in this room to talk to. Don't forget to take home a notebook and a chapbook, and thank you so much for being here.
That was our show. Thank you for listening. My name is James Lindsay. I am the publicist at Coach House Books, and the show is produced by Andrew Kaufman. See you next time.